Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic, Michael DeStefano, a.k.a. Al's brother. Late breaking news, last hour, Luke Willson is going to call in at 5:30 because he doesn't have the stomach or the stones to FaceTime in and watch us with our championship hats. And I have his championship hat that will now be sent either to the Pacific Mall or somewhere overseas or whatever. I was going to show him his hat that never was, right? His hat that never was. But I guess we'll talk with Luke in half an hour and Mark Masters in 5 minutes from Ottawa ahead of Canada, Czechia tonight. And I'm sure you guys heard Gavin McKenna speak on the pressures of this game tonight and how people are feeling about the team. You guys want to hear what he had to say about his mentality going into this game, his team's mentality, and how Canada is prepping for this evening.
Have you been able to avoid the noise so far here?
Yeah, I've been trying my best to stay away from it. And honestly, for me, it doesn't really get to me. It kind of fuels me a little bit.
You like to see negative stuff?
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Have you looked at anything since the U.S. game?
A little bit. It's definitely fuel for sure. You got some people in our own country doubting us, so I don't know. Just want to prove them wrong.
People in our own country doubting us.
Is that a shot?
He's not wrong, but what would you expect Canadians to do? Like, this is, again, a scenario where a tournament like this, like we were talking about last hour, I am openly rooting for them. I hope they win. I believe they can win the game tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
But based on what we've seen out of the group stage, you can't expect the country collectively to be uber confident about the way things are going to play out.
No.
Come on, guys.
It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a really, really good game, though. Like, these are two good teams. As bad as they've been, like, they're still a good team. There's a lot of really quality players on this squad, and I think it's going to be a close game. You got two good goalies, and they just got to find a way to generate some scoring chances.
Yes.
Get some goals on the board.
Find someone that's dangerous. Get inside the paint. Like, they haven't had a prototypical, like, whacking away on rebounds Canadian goal at all. Like, it hasn't happened for them. And, we'll catch up with Mark Masters here in a moment. Big game for Easton Cowan, right? Second year with the World Junior team.
Yeah.
CHL Player of the Year last year. We know what he did in camp 2 years ago with the Leafs. Didn't have a great camp this year. By all accounts, has not played up to his standards in London this year and has not had a great tournament. Showing some frustration. He does it's not like it's an effort issue with Cowan or anybody else on that team. He is trying to show his involvement. He's trying to get into the game. It just is not triggered for him. And it's a big moment for him, and it's tough because, like, if you're a Leaf fan, you're not following what he's doing down in London. You're not watching the London Knights play. Right. You're a Leaf fan living in Toronto. This is when you see the top prospects play.
Yeah.
And you want to see them pop, and it just hasn't happened yet. Again, the beauty of the tournament is they have another opportunity starting tonight. Let's head to Ottawa. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here is our Team Canada reporter, Mark Masters. Mark, how would you describe the mood of the Canadian team and the confidence of the Canadian team going into this game tonight?
Maybe the mood would be defiant, I would say. They know there's been a lot of criticism of the team, and they've been critical of themselves here of late with all the penalties. But, they're kind of defiant. I think they've still got a decent, kind of swagger to them, a little bit of confidence, despite the fact they've lost a couple of games. One to, a team that they've never lost to before this tournament in Latvia, and one to their most hated rivals. So, defiant and, still pretty confident, I would say.
Easton Cowan, we were just talking about Cowan, and you've connected with him more than I'm sure the other players because of his time with the Leafs and within the Leafs camp and following his career. What do you make of his tournament so far? Like, I know the stats haven't been great. The penalty he took the other night was a stupid penalty. He's owned it. He knows it. But, he's taken a ton of heat. And I think in large part because he's a Leaf prospect. I mean, let's call it what it is. Everyone throughout the country is going to jump on him immediately because of the team he's affiliated with. But what have you seen from Easton Cowan, not only on the ice, but I guess behind the scenes as well?
Yeah, you know what? I think his tournament's kind of been like the team's, right? Like, it's had some great moments. Got on the board in that Boxing Day win, and then at times he's just been a little off, right? just can't quite connect, and they've been switching around the top line. It looks like they're going to get Bradley Nadeau back up there tonight. They had Cole Beaujoin there for the last couple, and they're just trying to find something here. And Callan's trying to find something here as well. And he's such an important part of this team. They really need him going. If they're going to get this thing back on the rails, it's going to be because he's found his game as well. So I like what I've heard off the ice, though, taking responsibility for the penalty and saying it starts with him. I think that's what you want to hear. He's talked about how being a Maple Leafs prospect, he's been under the microscope more than other team prospects, and that's helped him mature a bit. And we'll see if some of that maturity pays off starting tonight.
We've been talking about how the books and FanDuel have Canada favored heavily in this one, Mark, minus 335 on the money line. That's a win probability of 78%. But it feels more like a 50-50 coin flip based on how these two teams have played to this point in the tournament. What stands out to you about Czechia, the team that Canada's playing tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we saw them in the final pre-tournament game. Canada really struggled against them, didn't generate a whole ton. Gavin McKenna had a big game. He scored a couple of goals. Bradley Nadeau got on the board. They won 3-2 on a late McKenna goal. But Czechia played them tough, and Czechia's played them tough in the last, just historically in this tournament here of late. So I like what Patrick Augusta, the Czech coach, said today. He's like, I think he said his team's a little bit of an underdog, but not real underdogs. Like, this is more of a 50-50 proposition in their mind. So I think that's fair. The Canadians know how tough the Czechs can be. There's returning players from last year when they lost to Czechia. So I expect this to be a very tight, stressful night here in Ottawa.
Mark, the three of us would like to see more McKenna tonight. Do you think we will get that?
Dave Cameron has hinted at that. He said that the penalty problem, one of the byproducts of that is he hasn't been able to give McKenna and that line more time. That's probably the most dangerous offensive line here of late. Berkeley Catton leads the team in shots, and they just feel like they're on the cusp of breaking out. I spoke to McKenna today. I loved his kind of what he was putting off there. He said, I said, how are you handling the noise? He said, yeah, we try and stay away from it, but I don't mind it. I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, it fuels me. And I said, did you look at some of the stuff that was being said after the New Year's Eve loss? He said, yeah, you got people in our own country doubting us, and I want to prove them wrong. So I really like what McKenna's saying, and I think he's going to get more ice time tonight. He had a hat trick in the gold medal game at the under-18 Worlds. He's shown that he can step up in these big moments, and they're going to give him every opportunity to do that tonight.
Lastly, Mark, because I know you got to fly. There's a lot going on out there in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. Dave Cameron has been on the firing line. I mean, there's been a lot of people kind of running at him, the way that he's decided to put together the lineup, the way he's kind of stuck to his team in terms of what he envisioned at the start. He's gone through the group stage, and it sounds as if a lot of it will carry over to tonight. But also after the two losses, he canceled practice the next day, and then he canceled the skate this morning. Or they didn't have a skate this morning. They haven't been on the ice since they lost to the Americans on New Year's. Is there any reasoning behind that? And is it a big story in Ottawa because it appears to be picking up steam online and throughout the rest of the country?
Yeah, I think it's a big story. I mean, because they didn't practice, they didn't have a general media availability. I was able to talk to some of the guys at the team hotel for part of our broadcast, and they just kind of wanted to be in a bit of a bubble here going into this game as things have gone. They value, obviously preserving energy here. They don't, necessarily know how much you're going to get out of a morning skate or whatnot. The Czechs did do a full morning skate after canceling yesterday's practice. But yeah, they apparently were hanging out at the hotel yesterday, kind of just doing like having a game night kind of situation, playing a little cornhole, just trying to unplug. Obviously the pressure has been ratcheting up. McKenna seems to like hearing the negative stuff, but I'm sure some players don't. And it's maybe not great for their mental health. So they've kind of try to keep them away from that, trying to loosen them up, help them deal with the pressure now. I'm sure that if Canada does not play well tonight, a lot of people will look at, how they handled things and the lack of practice time and the lack of skates as maybe a reason for that. But, yeah, I mean, because there's no general media availability today, it's hard for me to get a sense to see how big of a story that is in Ottawa here. Mm-hmm. But if they don't respond tonight, I can tell you it will be a big story after the game.
Absolutely. Enjoy it tonight, Mark. We always appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
There's Mark Masters joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, and get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. The idea that you wouldn't want to stay on the ice, you wouldn't want to get back on the ice, you wouldn't want to practice, especially considering it's such a short tournament.
Right.
But it feels like that is the point that Dave Cameron's trying to make, that there's nothing he can do that is going to change what's going to happen with this group. Like, he was asked that question after taking all those penalties the other night. He's like, I can't do anything. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, I can't do anything.
Isn't that what Gerard Mayo said once about the Pats?
Yeah.
He's just like, once they get
past the line, don't look at me, man. Not my problem. Like, for me, that messaging I found very peculiar. And again, staying off the ice and trying to shield them from stuff. Like, this is what comes with the junior tournament, especially on home soil. If the guys don't have what it's going to take to thrive under the lights, then they're just not going to be able to do it, but you can't run from it.
Well,
I think you got to embrace it. Get out there and talk and skate and play. And this seems like they're trying to go the opposite way.
Which is bizarre because of how much they're struggling and what they're struggling to do, which is score. And you would think the puck touches, you think getting in there and getting confidence by playing a little bit, even if it's just, I don't know, like just go out there and play some shit. Just get out there. You talk up to former players all the time, and they say, oh, yeah, after practice I was out there shooting extra free throws, or I was out there, kickers, just kicking extra field goals, getting my shots in, trying to see it drop as many times as possible. Wouldn't you think you would want the Canadians to be out there doing that possibly here? Like,
do you guys think there's any advantage to the opposite, where they haven't played since New Year's Eve, and the first time they'll get on the ice, I guess, would be the pregame warm-up?
Mm-hmm.
Think there's any advantage to just like you're just getting on there and kind of just playing?
I guess we'll find out. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of adrenaline. There's going to be energy. They're going to be hyped up to play, right? And the preparation, I'm not sure what you're going to accomplish. It just felt like more routine for hockey players to be on the ice. And if you feel like there's a connectivity issue, and it appears as if there is,
but do you
allow them to work that out in practice.
But maybe it is about the criticism. Maybe it's just like, but these guys are, they're feeling it.
Maybe or they're trying to shield them from something that they're prognosticating is there. I'm talking about Hockey Canada here. Like, they lost. Better get them away from everything. I don't think that I personally don't think that's a benefit. I think what comes with being on this team and playing for your country, and especially playing on home soil, is it is going to be very pressure packed. There's nothing you can do to get away from that.
Yeah.
Yes, like whether you practice or not, the lights are going on tonight at 7:30, and people are going to be bouncing off the walls.
And the non-practice becomes a story.
Exactly. Then it's like, what are you shielding for? Get out there and just put it behind you. Like, they haven't been blown out. They lost to Latvia in round 8 of the shootout.
But that's
bad loss. Awful. You lost to Latvia at home. You obviously would never be expected to happen, but. Even the American game was 1-1 early in the third.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't get their doors blown off. They haven't played up to their standards and up to the expectations, but it's not been an unmitigated disaster. So I would puff the chest out and say we are really confident. Where some of these team actions, and I don't even know if it's on the players, I think it's more the coaching staff in Hockey Canada are suggesting we're not that confident, and we're going to go into this bubble here, and we're going to try to avoid everything and everyone, and we're just going to show up and hope it works out. Where I would have taken the opposite approach.
Well, I wonder if the messaging would have been different from the coach if he had just said what you're saying. We're fine. We're good. We're going to break through.
Watch.
Yeah.
But I guess without knowing how it's going to turn out, because they haven't played at this point, we're simply predicting.
Sure.
I think that's always in your best interest to exude that confidence, even if you're faking it to make it.
Yeah.
Just always puff your chest out. We're Canada. We believe in ourselves. If you want to, and McKenna kind of said that.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to doubt us, you go ahead. We're going to shut you up. I love that attitude, and you might as well have it, right? And it's not that they've expressed the opposite. It's not that they've come out and said we're in big trouble. They haven't done that, but I think it's always in your best interest. Once it's declared you're the favorite, and they are, regardless of what's happened, because that's the expectation that you're supposed to win because you're Canada, you can't change that narrative, and you can't change that expectation. It will be adjusted to an extent in terms of what you think could happen, but if you lose, it's going to be a disappointment. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality.
Always.
Yeah, it's just always going to be the case.
Any year they don't win, we're always talking about, Canada didn't win.
Yeah, and you're not going to win it every single
No.
year. And if they lose tonight, it's not a summit or something like that. That's not going to happen. There's twists and turns to every single year and every single crop of players. But you might as well puff your chest out until you're actually out, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, for sure.
Go out there and be like, we're the bullies. We're Canada. We're going to win this thing. People are dying to get on your side.
Well,
Score first tonight.
That's what it is.
Get this place rocking.
And that's what
And
goes
the rest
back
is
to
history.
What you're talking about, that first 10 minutes, what you were talking about earlier, is going to be key, right? You got to go out there, forecheck as hard as you can, be aggressive on pucks, make some plays, get those scoring chances, and find a way to get a couple to drop. You do that, you're up 1-0, 2-0 maybe in the first 10 minutes of the hockey game. All of a sudden, that building is going to be rocking.
Absolutely.
And they can field off that positive energy as opposed to the tenseness that it feels like it's been over the last couple of games.
Well, and the flip side is then Czechia starts to realize, okay, this is what it's like to play Canada on Canadian soil. You need to get the opponent to realize that because none of them have had that experience yet. Mm-hmm. From Finland to Latvia to the U.S., Germany, none of them have really been like, wow, we're in one here. This place is going nuts. I'd rather be somewhere else.
Right.
You need to impose that. That's always been the Canadian way, in large part because of the physicality. There's no physicality so far with this team. Now, I do think a conundrum they're going to be dealing with mentally is all those penalties that they took. How do you marry the two where you stay disciplined, but you also stay aggressive and you stay physical and you push this team around and make them realize we can't keep up with them. I'm not going in that corner. I'm not going to the front of the net. I don't want to be here because that has been the Canadian way for a long, long time, especially with inferior opponents. Make them realize, Czechia, Latvia, Germany, whoever, I'm not doing it, man. I'm not taking that hit. I don't know if Canada's built that way. Doesn't appear as if they are based on the way they've played through the group stage. But that would be my messaging tonight.
One thing I do wonder, just in the age that we are, like, do you think there's ever been more pressure to be on a Canadian team than now, just with social media?
In terms of dealing with wins and losses
just
and
like,
getting through the tournament?
Yeah, just like, I think
it is
wonder,
different.
Yeah, I just think it would be different than even 10 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
I think
all these guys
definitely
are on their
truth in
phones
that.
all the time, right?
I wonder if there's a team policy where
Like no Instagram, no any of that stuff?
even that, I don't even know if you can police.
How can you police that?
I'm not sure you can.
Well, you do hear like of a lot of. I remember a couple of times you guys had some Olympic athletes come out and they say that they completely get all that stuff off their phone for the 2 weeks that they're there.
They
It
did
would
that.
be
I remember
smart for Hockey
2014,
Canada
I
to
think
do that.
Carey Price said that. I think
Yeah.
they all concluded that. I
Like the
think it
Summer
was in-
Olympics that just passed, like a couple of guys said that that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. You go into the village, I'm not
Summer
even bringing
McIntosh,
my phone.
She said, I didn't even, because I think you're asking, oh, what's it like getting text afterwards, their phone? Like, no, I'm not. Social media is gone.
I think it'd be a
Those
great
2
policy to have.
Should be.
Where actually it would be very refreshing for all these players to just get away from everything.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Like go into a bubble and go old school.
Instead of being on your
You just
phone,
give every
play
player a
ping
flip
pong.
phone?
Yeah.
Just say, if you want to call
But
your
you don't
parents,
even need
here you go.
that.
No
Like-
phones?
Well, I mean, if you
phones
want to
in the
use
room?
at the hotel, exactly.
Yeah.
All the parents are there, more or less.
Yeah, that's a good
You're gonna see
idea.
each other before the game, after the game.
Yeah.
Like it worked for every other team over the last 40 years, right? Go into the bubble. You're not going to be asked to do anything else. It's not like a teacher's calling you and said, hey, where's that essay? You know what I mean? Like there's nothing for you to do other
Yeah.
than focus simply on the game.
Well, and then if that's gone, you're not feeling anything from the outside, right?
I think it would be a great policy. I don't know if it's one that Hockey Canada entertains. I don't know if it's one that they apply. I don't know if it would, is it mess with
Players
some
would
sort of
just
personal.
hate it, right?
I think it'd be difficult for young players, young people to be completely, because I'm sure that a lot of them have girlfriends and stuff, and friends back home, and there's different people you want to talk to,
Yeah.
and you want to hear from. But it is very difficult to avoid the comment section.
Yeah.
It's impossible to do it. Nobody. I'm
Even if they're
convinced
just like scrolling through Instagram, they're going to come across
you're going to
right?
see something, a headline, and look, and there's 2,000
getting
comments. and you're going to go through it.
getting DMs from every loser out there.
Exactly.
These guys, how dare you lose? You can't even score a goal. What are you doing? They should have took this guy. Should have took that guy. Like that's the conversation happening right now.
Yes.
And and it's a legitimate discussion, right? You talk about there was a lot of really talented players that were left off the roster, and I guarantee you, there's a lot of people DMing saying this guy should have been there over you. You're not doing this.
That's what comes up
100%.
immediately if and when they lose.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
didn't make the team? Why he didn't? That's just par for the course. So you got Canada, Czechia tonight, and you get the Leafs, Islanders. John Tavares going back to the island. Like, it's not a story anymore up in Toronto.
Oh my man, that first time he went back, I was there. It was
Ruthless.
insane.
And they got smoked. That was one of the most embarrassing losses they've had in a long time.
I remember because Jake Muzzin after that game came out and was very honest and opinionated about how they played. It's not like that anymore. They still boo him, I think. But
I think it's not as visceral as
that
it
was.
That was
anger.
Yes. That
we
was
don't need you and all this snakes. People were holding up snake signs. Remember that? They were burning his jersey in the parking lot.
Ruthless, man. And I think the Islanders won 6-1. They dummied the Leafs that night. And the Leafs went into a shell. It was a bad look. Yeah. And again, that storyline doesn't necessarily carry over. In fact, I don't think it does at all. Yet John's sitting on 19 goals in the season. Mm-hmm. And a lot of discussion has been had naturally about, why it's happening, how it's happening. I think opportunity is a big part of it too. The fact that Austin's not around, this guy's playing in the biggest moments.
Yeah.
More and more is running through him, and he's playing with better players consistently, and he's getting better opportunities. Everything's got to run through John.
I don't know if that's. I think there's partly truth to that. He's had harder minutes without Matthews, so it's almost like you could even say it's more impressive that he's done what he's done. Because,
facing better competition.
He's facing better competition. His line is getting buried every night in the defensive zone. Mm-hmm. He is playing with Marner. The teammate thing is I'm not sure that's true. He's either played with Nylander or Marner the whole time,
mm-hmm.
but 34 season. If I had told you when that contract was signed, he would be having this kind of season in year 7 of the deal, you'd be like, no way.
No. He's on pace for over 40 goals.
Yeah.
I just don't know how. I wonder how different it is actually from last year, where he just wasn't getting those shots to drop, and this year they're going in. I think the style is probably more conducive to him playing under Craig Berube. They don't play as quickly. They're not getting exposed defensively like they would with some of the rush chances, but. Yeah, credit to him.
Yeah, no, it's a big opportunity for him with Matthews. Austin's on pace. Statistically, he's probably going to have the worst year of his career.
Yes. I looked at it. For 82 games, it would be 37 goals, 79 points.
Yeah.
Which would...
For him, again, it's a down year. It's a really good year.
Yeah.
For
that's the thing. You just
relative.
said, Tavares is on this great pace. He's on pace for 40 goals, and it's Matthews on pace for 37. It's terrible.
I know. It's
coming off 69 goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's lackluster.
It speaks to the greatness of Matthews and how what he does and what he is when he's himself. But I don't know what his season is going to look like the rest of the way. Right? That's been determined. Matthews, we're saying. I don't know how much he's going to play. I don't know how confident he's going to look, how comfortable he's going to be, what he's going to produce at. We'll see. It's a complete unknown right now. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully he's popping and everything's all good, but we don't know. So with that being the case, and him effectively having a season where all it has been about is his injury from camp.
Yeah.
When he left the camp, the practice early at one point, he never felt comfortable. It has opened up an opportunity for someone else to step in, and that has been John.
Yeah, he's grabbed it.
To his credit, exactly. It could have gone the opposite way. If it was a year 7 drop-off, the Matthews conversation would be even more, I think, nerve-wracking. There'd be more anxiety around that. There's still a fair amount because of who he is and where we're at. But if John didn't have 19 goals and was playing every single night and healthy and still taking on big minutes and big, assignments and stuff like that, it would be an even more daunting scenario that they could be facing right now.
And the fact that
full credit to Tavares.
It's just the consistency. And that's what he's been all you know exactly what you're going to get from Tavares each and every night. And the fact that he's still doing that at 34 years old in year 7 of that deal, I think is what's, overly impressive. You look at the underlying numbers, they're pretty similar to what they've been over the last few years. So to your point, is it because they're dropping a little bit more? The shooting percentage is a little higher than it's been the last couple. Maybe that's why it looks a little sexy. But he's been just as good in a lot of those areas. He's a guy who every year is in the top 5 in high danger shots. He goes to that area.
Into that spot.
He gets to that spot, and he's been so good in around the net his entire career. So you know what you're going to get from him. And that's what I appreciate, is he's been able to do it deep into this contract and deep into his career. Because if that fall off would have come, we talked about it in the first hour. The fact that you think they need to go out and get a third-line center. Well, it's because Tavares is playing so well right now that you don't think they need a number 2 center. But
Which
if he
I
wasn't,
felt in the past,
you're thinking they got to get someone to replace Tavares and move him off to the wing. But because he's playing at this level, and hopefully it continues, I mean, you never know when it's going to fall off. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's a little less loud about the top 6 as opposed to now it's okay. Matchup third line center is the number 1 need.
Well, and they need this. Like when you look ahead to the playoffs, they need this to continue.
Oh, 100%.
Like we talk about all those guys. Like he has not produced enough in the playoffs. He knows it. I've talked to him about it. Like it's something he's aware of. If they can lighten his load a little bit, I think that would help. To go back to our earlier conversation, and that's where like Matthews, what you're talking about, like his health and whether he's like, I don't know, 75%, 85%, 95%. Makes a big difference because suddenly if you're having to give Tavares harder minutes, suddenly maybe he's less productive. Like there's a trickle-down effect of everything.
And especially come playoff time. Like, again, he is still producing Tavares with tougher competition. Like up against...
Yes, but also playing the Islanders and playing...
But that's exactly the point. Yeah. Exactly. It's one thing to do that against Buffalo. Yes. It's another thing when Tampa's waiting for you.
Yes.
Or Florida or whatever.
Well, he played pretty well in that. He scored the game winner, but I think he ended up with like 3 or 4 goals in that series. I'm not mistaken.
But look back to last year.
Ryan O'Reilly, though, was a 3 seed taking on a lot of those responsibilities.
Yes, they do not have that. Yeah. And look back to last year. Like he played well defensively in that Boston series. He just didn't score. Yeah. That line didn't score, and they can't really survive a second line not scoring. They're not deep enough, right? So
and goal scoring has been a primary issue for them in the biggest games of the playoffs. I mean. They have to find a way to perform, and John is expected to do that. And again, there's still a lot of season left to see where we're going to be come playoff time in terms of where his game is at. But so far, so good for John Tavares. And again, the Leafs are in Long Island tonight, so we'll continue to tee that up. Pierre LeBrun will join us just after 6 o'clock. Luke Willson coming up. We'll look ahead to Week 18 with Luke, get his take on this MVP conversation, and the fact that Saquon Barkley is not going to play this weekend. 100 yards off, 101 yards off, establishing a new rushing record. Eric Dickerson is all good. Eric Dickerson, man, went on the record, said, I don't want this guy to beat me. Yeah. I love that honesty. That's how every athlete actually feels.
1,000%.
Like, if you're an uber crazy, competitive, freakish athlete, you never want anyone to beat you at anything.
Yeah. Gretzky's lying through his teeth.
They all are
about OV.
Oh, I love that he's going to do it. No, why would you? Why? Why would you want anyone ever to beat you? No. Why? Why would you not want to hold on to an incredible record like that?
You don't.
Now Gretzky might say, "Hey, I have so many records, I can maybe give one up."
But that's one of the biggest records in the game.
The boldest one in terms of the total number.
Like the record,
goals.
Brady gave up a record last week. Most sacks ever taken in an NFL
He's probably happy about that one.
Right? Gave it up to Aaron Rodgers last week. Yes. Bet he's okay with that one.
That is a different record that you're happy to give up. The positive ones, they all won.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers is a touchdown throw away from 500 in his career. So we'll get into that more with Luke. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 online, tsn1050.ca.
If you smell what the
When Willson
is cooking. Girl, you know it's true.
Unfortunately, this Milli Vanilli tune, it's not going away. It's not going away anytime soon. Al's brother, that hat looks absolutely phenomenal on you.
You too, Partsy. You too.
I appreciate that. I feel great. I haven't slept much in a few days. Jonas, hasn't it been great? You being in here with 2 champions, Al's brother and I, Hayes and Bro.
Champion sandwich.
It's just been a phenomenal afternoon. And we got more picks. And we were going to take a ceremonial knee, but that's a loser's move. That's a Nick Sirianni loser's move. We want double digits.
Yeah.
That's what we're pursuing.
I want to be Dan Campbell.
I'm going Dan Campbell. You're going Dan Campbell. We're all in on these picks for Week 18. Here's Luke Willson, the future commissioner of the Canadian Football League. Have we spun you out of control? Like, what is going on with you?
Okay, where do you want me to start here, boys? Do you want me to start with the football picks or the CFL? What's going on here?
How about congratulations? That might be in order right now.
I sent you the tweet. I said, congrats on the President's Trophy. I told Hayes, I remember my first season win. It was a special moment. I get you guys got your first one, and I couldn't be more excited for you, too. Again, I think for the parity of the league, it was good you guys finally won one.
Okay.
And now we go into the championship. But I would like some clarification, and I think this is fair. You know, the last year, it was a bit gray with, like, the first round, the second round. the Super Bowl. And I don't necessarily think it has to be today, but maybe next week Doogie can come on and say, this is what it's going to take to win the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
That's all I ask for.
I appreciate that, and I think that's important, and I want that clarified as well. So, Doogie, you have about a week to figure this out, exactly what the parameters of the playoffs are going to look like, okay, and what's at stake. And the playoffs are very important, obviously, and we intend on winning those also.
Yes.
And we'll get more hats, right? If we got to get more hats, we'll get more hats.
Yeah, job's not finished.
Job's not finished. But, yeah, no, it's all good, man. We'll get to some picks in a moment. I do want to pick your brain on a couple of NFL stories. But I did see you tweeting about the CFL. I find that quite intriguing, that you see it as a big opportunity for the Canadian Football League to take advantage of what? Where the rest of the sports landscape is at right now? Is that what you're kind of driving home?
1,000%. Hey, hear me. In the CFL hardos came for me. I've been in an absolute war on Twitter. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We can get to that as well. But I sit here and I say, you look at the current landscape of, let's call it youth and pro sports. Okay, basketball, especially in the States, viewership is extremely down. And I think there's a pretty big reason why. The product is trash.
Mm-hmm.
You get the odd game where it's a good matchup, but basketball, everyone's jacking up threes. I look at hockey, and I don't think I'm in the minority here, guys, and feel free to push back. But there's this world right now where it's like, man, this is the most talented hockey's ever been. And first and foremost, I don't think that exactly equates to a better product. Secondly, I would disagree. If you look up the 1999 All-Star Game rosters right now, I have a hard time believing you guys are going to sit here and read those rosters and say that team doesn't dominate in the NHL right now. But beyond that, you look at youth sports. You want to play hockey, it costs your arm and your leg. Mm-hmm. You don't check. There's no fighting. It's unbelievable. It's not the best product we've ever seen on ice, and maybe I should be nailed to the cross for that, but that's how I feel. Then I turn on the NFL, and this is what I'll say. There's been a couple snooze fests last week. I will agree with that. But you look at the Monday Nighter, San Fran versus Detroit. That game was electric. You cannot sit here as a sports fan and say it was not a fun game to watch.
Yep.
You look at the Sunday Nighter, Washington versus Atlanta, unbelievable. Unbelievable product. I would go to the Bengals-Broncos game and be like, holy smokes, this thing is also incredible to watch. And I sit here and say, why can't the CFL? Obviously, they're not going to be the NFL. Despite what the hardos believe, it's not the best game of football in North America. It's not the most talented. I'm sorry, CFL hardos, that's just not the case. But this is an opportunity for the CFL to make a step here. There's a lot of fans up there that still like seeing contact, and you're not going to see that. You're not going to see it in the NHL. So the CFL, to me, has an opportunity. But I'm learning via Twitter that I think part of the thing that holds the CFL back are these hardo fans. They want no changes to the game. Game's got to adapt, evolve. It's unbelievable.
Well, sports.
That's where I'm coming with that.
I hear you. I think you're onto something.
You tell me, Hayes.
No, I think you're onto something. I mean, I would agree with your assessment of hockey and where it's at. I do think it's a slippery slope that we're moving away from a lot of the physicality, a lot of the craziness, a lot of the unpredictability. But a lot of Canadians have pushed out of the way for whatever reason without realizing what the end game is going to look like, where it's more and more about the skill, which of course has a place and should have a place, but I think you need to marry the two. But I'm fearful that ship has sailed. And I do think that there's an opportunity for a physical sport to remain physical and to remain at least at the forefront. And I'm curious where football is going to go in this country in terms of the Canadian Football League. Do they add teams at some point? The Toronto market's always a conundrum because the NFL is so popular here now. How do you marry those two together? I don't know. It's complicated, but I think you might be onto something. As for the NFL, I'm curious your take on the Saquon Barkley situation where it read to me, the way Barkley spoke on it, the fact that he's not going to play this weekend at home against his former team.
Yeah.
100 yards away from Eric Dickerson, 101 yards rushing away from establishing a new record, a revered record in the sport, and he's not playing in preparation of the playoffs. What do you make of it? Do you like this decision? Can you reason with this decision?
I cannot reason with it.
I hate it. I hate it.
More against it. I hate it as well, Hayes. I hate it as well. And I'll tell you this, what's very tough for me from an outsider's perspective is if you listen to Dan Campbell in his speech on the Lions last week in a game that was not meaningful for them as far as the standings go. And then you hear that's the mentality Detroit's got. And they're probably going to have to see Detroit at some point. Okay? And you're, on the other hand, like, we're resting players. Like, oh, we were afraid to get hurt. That is my first concern, where it's like, that's not really a huge thing in the NFL. And I was watching a thing with Bill Belichick and Harbaugh, and they were like, you talk about resting players, even in the locker room. So it's okay, if you can't rest everybody. You don't have enough guys.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, okay, it's okay if Lane Johnson goes out there and gets hurt, but it's not if Saquon. And that creates a bit of a weird ordeal. And I'm not, again, it's not obviously apples to apples here. But then you keep going, and it's like, let's talk about the record itself. I'll be honest and say to you, like, that might be, as a team, the coolest record you can get, as far as that front seven in the sport goes. And I get there's an extra game. We can get into that. But my argument with the extra game would be, right now we'll say, oh, he did it in 17 games. You guys tell me when Roger Maris beat Babe Ruth's home run record, do you not have extra games?
Yeah.
30 years later, no one talks about the extra game.
No.
It might be an asterisk now, but it's not always going to be talked about that way. You got a shot in a pass-first league right now to basically write the history books as the greatest single-season rusher ever. And you're 101 yards away playing an absolutely very poor defense who you happen to kind of be a castaway from in the New York Giants. You don't play football thinking you're going to get hurt. This guy's rushed for 2,000 yards this year, not getting hurt. I have a hard time sitting here and being like, hey, man, we should play him we shouldn't play him because he might not get hurt. And that's the end of my rant. If I'm Saquon, you could tell in the interview, I think he was a little sad about it, man.
Yeah.
I would be too. I mean, that's like cream of the crop style records here. This isn't some garbage thing like, oh, it's kind of quirky. This is king dog. I cannot believe their entire playing unit is not asking Sirianni to play. I'm talking O-linemen, tight ends, and Saquon being like, we don't want to rest, we want to play.
I agree. I hate the idea that he's not playing. I think this is another development in sports. It's a sports science soft.
I'm agreeing with it.
You like this idea?
I like it. Let me just
explain yourself.
So let me give you a future headline. Saquon Barkley injured in the first quarter trying to chase a record done for the season. How do you guys feel then?
Okay.
So I hear you, Jonas. I understand, but can I ask you this? That's a possibility. Of course, anytime you play football, it's a possibility. But in the same breath, it's like, as a former guy is sitting out a week and not putting yourself in the normal routine of playing, and now all of a sudden he goes out there and for whatever reason, like, hey, man, I spent a lot of extra time on the couch last week, or I didn't have a game, or whatever. I got hurt in the first quarter of the next game.
Yeah.
Because I was doing extra lifts or whatever. Like, it's a hard game to quantify because that would be obviously worst case scenario. And I totally get that. But I still don't think it's that likely. Like, the guy's played 16 games so far, and there's been some of those games where he's touched the ball 25, 30 times, okay, and not gotten, quote-unquote, hurt.
But if I can eliminate the risk, right? Like, if I can eliminate what's riskier, right? Him playing or not playing? You're saying maybe
it's probably him playing, but again,
like him not playing. Yes.
I mean, in sports, what are we like? If we're doing a headline thing, it's glass half full, glass
we argued
half
about
empty.
this last year with Matthews. Like,
game
I think
82.
he played game 82 trying to get 70,
right?
And he was fine.
Yeah, exactly. And he should have.
And he wasn't fine.
And then it didn't work for him in the playoffs. I mean, but I think the ideal scenario is he gets the record and then wins the Super Bowl. Then it's the most magical season you've ever seen.
Because if he doesn't win a Super Bowl and they don't win and they hold him out for nothing and they get bounced in round 1 or 2, now all of a sudden it's,
what did you give up?
What did you give up?
Yeah.
Why'd you give up
You
that
gave up a
record?
chance at history. That is, yes, an individual record, but it's also a team one, which is what you're saying, Luke. Like, the offensive line would take a lot of pride in this, and they should.
I'll be honest. I, as a guy who was like, especially in my second, third year, pretty heavily involved in our run game with Marshawn, if we were never close to 2,000 and 100 yards, but if we were ever close to that record, I would want to play. To say that, like, I was a tight end on that team, and Marshawn would clearly be the main reason. But to say that I had a small part in being the greatest rushing attack of all time, like, to me, that would be one of the most special things of my career. It would be in my top 5. And I mean, obviously, Super Bowl is one, but that would be in my top 5.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to some picks here. Owen Wilson on the clock. The Ravens are now 19.5-point favorites. 19.5 against the Browns. You guys are on the clock. What's your play?
I mean, I hate that I'm doing this, and I'm sure you guys will make fun of me. I'm taking the Browns.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. I
you have to
want to take the Browns. Correct. But 20 points? I mean, even if it's 20 in the fourth quarter, or like on a game that doesn't really matter that much for the if it's 20 in the fourth quarter, Lamar
Ravens, it's over. Yeah, exactly. He's getting pulled from the game. It's done.
Like, does DTR come back and snag a whatever? I have to take the 19 points.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the grossest games of all time, but it's a division game too. Like, it's the Browns' last game of the year. Like, the guys try and, go with a good, taste in their mouth. As you can see, I'm stumbling a bit here because you don't love taking 19.5.
It's gross.
No, it's gross.
I'm taking the Browns.
I think it's the play, though. I mean, it's so many points. Bengals, Steelers. Bengals -1.5.
Yeah.
Camp, where you at?
I'm kind of surprised that, this is a short line as it's been. You look at the way that both these two teams have played. Pittsburgh,
Steelers stink right now.
They've really showed their true colors the last couple of weeks. They're not a good football team. We've been saying it all year. It's a fraudulent playoff team. Meanwhile, Joey Burrow's out here making a late charge for MVP. If he has any hope in hell of dethroning Josh Allen, who I think deserves it at this point, he's got to win this football game and win it handily. I think for sure, I think they're going to win this game. Whether the Chiefs do them a solid and beat the Broncos, we'll see.
Then Miami's got to lose.
Miami's got to lose also against Aaron Rodgers. Should be an
It's a
interesting
gong show.
weekend, but I think they absolutely take care of business and they get their victory. Certainly with a 1.5 spread. Who day, baby?
Yeah, all day. We're on the Bengals. All right. Falcons -7.5. They have to win this, and the Bucs have to lose at home to New Orleans, which I don't think is going to happen. But Falcons -7.5 against the Panthers. Who do you like and why?
I mean, at this point, like you guys said, it doesn't really matter. But I'm taking the Panthers. It's a division game. I understand they just got blown up by the Bucs, but Michael Penix right now is not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is on fire, and you sit here and say, okay, they also don't have Mike Evans. I like Drake London, I really do, but Mike Evans, a first ballot Hall of Famer at the rate he's going. You look at the Panthers right now, they got to win 2 weeks ago against the Cardinals. They played the Eagles tough. They played the Bucs tough December 1st. That one went to overtime. They played the Chiefs tough, and they beat the Giants. Now, the outlier in there is the Cowboys loss. So, but I sit here, it's a division game. This will be, obviously the Panthers Super Bowl. And I don't think the Falcons think they have much chances here. I think the Bucs, everybody pretty much knows the Bucs are going to handle their business. Correct. You got a young quarterback in there. I don't think they've fully opened up the playbook for him. Watching last week, I thought Penix had a tremendous fourth quarter with some really great plays. But I think midway through the third, his pass rating was 50. And he looks like he's talented. I'm not saying he's not going to be a great player in this league, but like any quarterback, it's his third game starting. So to me, I got to take the 7.5 here at the Panthers. I think Dave Canales has got that squad at least turned around a bit. And they'll battle this thing and keep it somewhat close.
Yeah, I like that. Well, here's another one. Broncos -10.5 at home against the Chiefs. Denver has to win to get in. The Chiefs, like Mahomes isn't going to play. I can't imagine Chris Jones. He's not going to play.
Probably
he's been banged up. And I don't know if Kelsey's going to play. You got Carson Wentz, divisional game. Andy Reid will be there. It's a big spread, though. I mean, it's a big spread.
That's I think double digits is kind of insane. Like,
exactly.
They're still sitting Mahomes, but like this defense is still good enough to limit a rookie quarterback and Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo against a rookie quarterback. Like, I get they've had a really good offensive line, but I still think they're going to put some pressure on this kid and force him into a mistake or two. They could keep. They may not win the game, and they may end the season 15-2. But 10.5, a double-digit spread.
I think you take the points.
Insane to me. I think you got to take the points.
I think you have to take the points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs won this game. I would not be surprised at all if the Broncos puked all over themselves here.
I agree. It's unfortunate Doogie's still giving you guys layups, but I sit here and say, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what else is unbelievable. Dave Feschuk on that little thing you guys put on Twitter.
Yes.
I didn't realize Dave Feschuk was one of you guys. And he had a little hint. I can always see it in their eyes.
I know.
Dave Feschuk had that hint of, I hate pro athletes. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted to shed a tear for you guys. You guys didn't warn me that Feschuk is the moral enemy to the pro athletes.
Yeah, well,
I've seen many people like this guy before. He's public enemy number one right now. Once I find where my partner is, because he's on the milk carton, I'm going after Feschuk. But let's go back to the Chiefs here for a sec. I also think, I know you're gonna laugh, but I think the NFL is gonna help them out.
Oh, they want Joe Burrow playing, man, big time,
100%.
Yeah, got to have Burrow in the playoffs.
Like Hayes, I sit here and everyone's like, "Oh, there's not a good chance." Like yada yada yada. If you're Goodell right now, you have the two potential matchup of the two best football players currently on the planet playing in Joe Burrow and Josh Allen in the first round of the playoffs.
Terrifying.
I mean,
for the
nothing
Bills,
could be more electric than that.
That'd be amazing.
Terrifying for the Bills, agreed. But as far as the NFL goes, you can't write the script any better. I mean, you want to talk about ratings. Let's say the Bills win that. You're then going to see probably Lamar versus Josh. And then whoever wins that, either Josh and Lamar versus Patty Mahomes.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I mean,
it's brilliant.
It's unbelievable.
Prime
They're going
time.
to get Joe Burrow in. NFL's rigged.
All right. Well, quickly here, because we got to be quick. Lions, Vikings. Lions minus 2.5 to put a cap on the season.
Oh, I'm taking Vikes for sure. I'm taking the Vikes. 2.5. Listen, last time these guys played, it came down to a last-second field goal. I think that right now, the Vikings are humming. The big matchup here, Hayes, is going to be, believe it or not, for me, it's going to be Vikings run defense versus Lions run game. Vikings run defense, number 2 yards per game, number 2 total yards. They can keep Goff in 3rd and long. I still think Goff slings it, but it's going to be one of those things where now all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 stops, and I can't see the Lions getting that many stops unless they get some bad turnovers from Sam Darnold, kind of like they got from Brock. I think Addison, Jefferson, and T.J. Hawkinson have an absolute day against the defense, so I'm taking the points.
Yeah, I think that's the play. I'm with you there. All right, man. Find your partner because it's go time next week. Playoffs next week.
Listen, all I'm saying is this. The playoffs next week is really going to – I think it's either going to make or break Timo and Willson heading into next season. A lot of controversy right now. Playoffs are going to be very telling.
Where's Rod at? Rod the bot.
That's for them to figure out, not us. Good chat with you, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Cheers, guys.
There he is, Luke Willson. All right, Pierre LeBrun's still to come. We got a list coming up as well. Leafs in action, Canada in action. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Pierre LeBrun coming up into the next hour. Get into the Leaf game tonight. Sens back in action. They keep winning even without Ullmark. And how about the Habs? The Habs are 3 points out of a playoff spot right now. And the Vancouver Canucks are now officially out of a playoff spot. And it is a circus in Vancouver right now. So we'll get into that and more coming up with Pierre LeBrun in the final hour. We're teeing up Canada's game tonight, the Leaf game tonight. The Raptors with a win last night.
Hey.
They're 11 straight losses. Shout out to the Raptors. Final hour coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.